Welcome to Jewish Cinémathèque, where we meet some of the important faces involved with films that tackle aspects of the Jewish experience. Today, I'm joined by filmmaker Mike Burstyn. Mike is one of the pioneers of Israeli cinema, having first gained fame through his portrayal of Kuni in Kuni Lemel, and subsequently Kuni Lemel in Tel Aviv and Kuni Lemel in Cairo. And after that, having gone on to act in over 25 films internationally, having done a television program in the Netherlands, and most recently taken the leap to film directing with Azimut, which he also wrote. Mike, welcome to
Thank you.
Jewish Cinémathèque. It's really special to have you with me. Well, tell me about Azimut. I mean, why would an actor like you, who's certainly established himself in the field, take that crazy leap to film directing?
I imagine that many actors, not most, because it's really, once you start in that direction, you realize how difficult it is to direct a feature film. But many actors, after a while, I think may have that urge to also direct at some point. I have been waiting for this for many years. I was always involved in the films that I acted in, especially the Kuni Lemel films, the Herschel films. They were all directed by my dear friend Yoel Zilberg, may he rest in peace. And I was always, involved behind the camera. The cinematographers that I worked with, especially the greats in Israel, like Adam Greenberg, who became famous here in the States, and David Gorfinkel. So I was always involved in the technology, behind the scenes, in the writing of the scripts. And I knew that one day the right project would come along, but I didn't want to do it when I was young. I realized that I have to do it when I was young. Now, I wanted to feel mature and secure enough. And 3 years ago, a little more than 3 years ago, I realized we were approaching the 50th commemoration of the Six-Day War, which I had been in when I was a young soldier in Israel. And after the war, a friend of mine gave me a story and said, someday this should be a motion picture. It was a few pages, and I kept that for over 50 years. And I knew that this would be my first project if I ever directed a film. I took it out about 3 or 4 years ago. I looked at it. I decided this was what I wanted to do, especially in 2017 when we were commemorating the 50th anniversary. I looked for a screenwriter to turn it into a script, but the cost for the minimum Writers Guild of America fee for a first draft of a screenplay was $50,000. I said, you know what? I'll buy the program, the software, and I'll try and do it myself. And I did. It took me a while, but I wrote the screenplay.
This was your very first effort at writing a screenplay? You had never done it before?
Not completely. I had been involved with screenplays that already existed, and working on them, but not from scratch. And so I took the story. I eventually came up with a first draft. I gave it to a neighbor of mine who is a screenwriter. She said, "You've got a first draft. You've got something to go on." And then I was very fortunate, make a long story short, to find 2 investors in Israel who agreed that this is a story that needs to be told. Udi Rekanati, my dear friend, and Moshe Edrei, who heads United King Films. They both believed in it. I was very lucky to cast 2 magnificent actors, and I found out very quickly that casting is what it's all about. A great cinematographer in Israel, and a great editor who had done all my films. And we shot it in 14 days. Amazing.
What's the story about, Mike?
It's a story of two soldiers, an Egyptian and an Israeli, who happen to meet the day after the ceasefire in Sinai, and each one arrives at a building that was abandoned in the middle of the desert. It was a United Nations outpost, and each one for his own reason. The Egyptian is trying. He's the last survivor of his unit, and is trying to get home to this canal. And the Israeli happens to arrive with a jeep that breaks down. I won't give away the story, but they happen to encounter each other and have to decide, how do they survive? The Egyptian doesn't know that the war is over. And do they survive by cooperating and surviving together? Or do they try to eliminate each other, which is the story that's been happening for, forever between us and our neighbors.
And, being someone, what's amazing about your life story is that you've managed to go back and forth between the United States and Israel and even Europe. You've brought a mastery of not only English, but Yiddish and Hebrew. So did you go into the project with any political motive?
No, not at all. First of all, I always remember the famous quote by, I think it was either Goldman or Meyer, one of the producers in Hollywood, who always said they came to him with movies and scripts about political messages. And his answer was, if you want to send a message, send a telegram. If you're making a motion picture, it's not a message. It's got to be entertaining. So that's the number one criteria. It's got to be a film that people want to come and see and be entertained either dramatically or comedically. But the idea was to commemorate the Six-Day War, and also to show, if there is a message to the film, it's if we don't cooperate, we will not survive. And it's not just between us and our neighbors, but it happens all over the world. If it's between Pakistanis and Indians, or Bosnians and Serbs, or wherever it's happening in the world, and you have to cooperate in order to survive. We can't do it alone.
Mike, you took a jump, you took a leap to make an independent film. It wasn't funded by a studio per se, even though you had, two major investors. What happens then? I mean, how do you get a film like this out into the world? And how does one show a film like that during the COVID-19 pandemic period?
That's
Is the film available on streaming, or will it be available at some point?
That's the $64 question. $64,000 question. The film was released in Israel in 2017, in June, just at the time we were commemorating the 50th anniversary of the war. And then we tried very hard to distribute it. One of the problems I encountered, unfortunately, was that we were supposed to be nominated for the Israeli Academy Award, for the Ophir Award, in the category of Best Film, Best Director, Best Cinematographer. Unfortunately, there was a clause in the bylaws of the Israel Academy that prohibited me from being nominated as a director. It caused a big uproar in Israel. There was a lot of talk about it because the bylaws said that any Israeli can be nominated, but the caveat is that they have to be permanent residents of Israel. And I'm both an Israeli and an American citizen. And I've been residing in Los Angeles for several years, and that eliminated me from being a nominee, and it was a big, big scandal in Israel. The film was nominated and the cinematographer, but that would have helped enormously in getting the film distributed to the festivals, Cannes, Berlin, Toronto, and also, unfortunately, I think the subject matter was not something that those festivals wanted to deal with. It wasn't the negative message of Israel. It was a positive message. And that sometimes, unfortunately, that's not what the festivals want to see. So we didn't get into the major festivals. I tried very much with the streaming services, but again ran into the same problem that people want to see Israel in a controversial light, let's put it that way. And Azimut is a film about the future, about how we can, cooperate together and compromise. That's the most important thing. It's a film that sends you a clear message that compromise is the only choice if we want to survive, and our legacy should continue with our children and grandchildren and have them live in peace. So right now the film is available in Israel. It's out on DVD. It's streaming on pay-per-view in Israel, but we still haven't been able to get it streaming here in the United States. Or we did win one festival, strangely enough. We won Best Film at the Calcutta International Film Festival in India. And the reviews of the film were so positive because they saw a similarity in what they are going through.
Between the India and Pakistan. Mike, wow. Let's take a break and look at a clip, a trailer from Mike Burstyn's film, Azimuth.
2 soldiers, 1 jeep, 1 goal. Survival.
You up there?
You talk to me?
No, to Moshe Dayan.
What do you want?
How is this going to end?
Either I kill you, or you kill me. I'm willing to discuss a way out of here.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm thinking.
Azimuth.
So I want to sort of dive back because I have on the program someone with a very interesting story, and I look forward, Mike, to that memoir that hopefully you're going to write, because your story, your life story, is worthy of a book. And in fact, there was even a movie made, The Comedians, about your family. You grew up in a home where both of your parents were actors, singers, performers. You traveled the world. I had a chance when I was in Argentina. All of a sudden, there was a poster of the Burstyns performing at the Yiddish theater in Buenos Aires. And you yourself have a career where you've lived in the States and you've lived in Israel, and you go back and forth. Early on, you got an opportunity to do Kuni Lemel. How did that happen?
Wow. Well, I was doing a Yiddish musical with my parents in 1965, the Megillah of Itzik Manger. And we came to Broadway with it, actually, a few years later. We were the first Israeli musical to perform on Broadway in Yiddish, interestingly enough. But the producer of the first Israeli film in CinemaScope Technicolor musical, we had the Israel Philharmonic was the orchestra that performed the score for Kuni Lemel. This was in 1965, and Mordechai Navon, who was the head of Geva Studios, the first major studio in Israel, film studio, and they were looking to cast the dual role of this iconic Yiddish musical, which was being done in Hebrew, obviously, Shnei Kunilemel, the two Kunilemels. Very famous. Abraham Goldfaden, the father of the Yiddish theater, had written this, in the 19th century, and they were looking for an actor that could portray both the Shlemiel and the student. Two completely different characters, but they looked exactly alike. And they came to see me in this musical. And my father was very happy when they came backstage, and he said, "You'll see him in the second act. He's even better." And Navon said, "I want to see him as Kuni Lemel." At that moment, I knew I had the part.
Wow.
And I was extremely lucky because it turned me overnight when the film came out in 1966. There was no television in Israel. Half the population, there were 3 million, residents in Israel at the time. 1.5 million saw the movie. It was incredible, and it turned me overnight into a movie star in Israel. And since then, all these years, people, any Israeli you'll meet, and it's second, third, fourth generation already. These films are shown constantly on television in Israel. When you mention my name, they'll say Kuni Lemel. I've been Kuni Lemel for all these years. And
do they ever stop you in the street and make you sing Ani Kuni 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 Lemel?
Well, the first one was Omrim ki ani eneneni ani alken ani nivhar. The older generation remembers that. But, ironically, the last few years, I tried for quite a while trying to get away from that image of Kuni Lemel, because Kuni Lemel was a diaspora Hasidic Jew, and it kind of, typecast me. But lately, first of all, I realized if so many people over these generations love this character, I become sort of like an anti-hero. But the last few years, something strange happened. I was cast by a dear friend of mine in a new Israeli TV series called Judah. And it's a modern version of a Jewish vampire. I'll just say that. It's become extremely popular in Israel, and it was picked up by Hulu. And we just finished the second season, which will be coming out pretty soon. And I play a rabbi. And I was standing at a ATM machine on Allenby in Tel Aviv, waiting my turn to get some money out of the machine. And behind me was a father and a 15-year-old young son. And the young son was whispering to his father in Hebrew, "Daddy, you know who that is?" And the father said, "Oh, yeah, that's Kuni Lemel." And the young man said, "No, Dad, what's Kuni Lemel? That's the rabbi from Judah." So I am so proud that I now have a new identity for the young generation that didn't know Kuni Lemel. I am now known as the rabbi in Judah. So I got a new career.
What's amazing about your career is that you've done theater, film. You've done theater and in Yiddish. You've done theater in Hebrew, film in Hebrew, film in English. Your characters have been serious characters and light-hearted characters like the Kuni Lemel, Mr. Mani, and you had the Herschela series. So now you seem to be very comfortable with this stereotype, but did you feel it hurt your career in any way along the way?
Strangely enough, I had a television show in Holland for many years. That's a story in itself. It's crazy, a variety show in Holland. And as a result of that, I was cast to replace the star on Broadway, Jim Dale, in a musical called Barnum. And of 100 major actors who wanted that role, I got the part. And this was P.T. Barnum, Phineas Taylor Barnum from Bridgeport, Connecticut. And the first performance that I did, I got on stage And I got, for my first performance, I got a telegram from Jim, and I still have it. And it says, if they can accept a limey playing Barnum, your being Jewish should be no problem. But I still was very hesitant, and I was on stage, the first performance, and I'm looking in the audience, and the thought crossed my mind, wait a minute, don't they see I'm Jewish? I'm playing the iconoclastic, P.T. Barnum, and and then I snapped out of it because I said to myself, that's your problem. They don't see you as being Jewish. The audience is seeing P.T. Barnum. And I went on to play that role on Broadway, and eventually we did a Dutch version in Holland for a year. We toured with it. And that really made me understand that it's not who I am, it's what I am portraying. And if I have a problem with it, that's my problem. The audience sees what I am providing them. And so to answer your question, no, it has, on the contrary, it has made me understand that I am lucky to be an international actor. That's my, and I've performed in 8 languages. I picked up 8 languages touring with my parents in the Yiddish theater over the years. And I've performed in 7 of those languages. So I'm extremely lucky.
Let's take a break and look at a clip from Mike's early film, Two Kunilemels, Shtei Kunilemels.
הייתי קונילמל, עוד בילדותי, קראו לי קונילמל להנאתי, ולמה זה ירצה מי לגזול ממני שמי? כאילו קונילמל, מי יודע מי? מי אתה? קונילמל. מי אתה? קונילמל. ואתה? קונילמל, ואתה? קונילמל. מה זה? כל העולם קונילמל. התותח קונילמל רץ מלפניי, בגלל הקונילמל חושך לעיניי, חשבתי קונילמל יחיד בצורתי, והנה קונילמלים צצו לעומתי. אומרים כי אני אינני אני, על כן אני נבהל. כי אם אני אינני אני, אז מי אני בכלל?
אומרים כי ההוא איננו ההוא, על כן ההוא נבהל. כי אם ההוא איננו ההוא, אז מי ההוא בכלל?
Mike, it's just wonderful to see you again in that amazing role. I also remember when you walked out of a taxi cab in Ephraim Kishon's Sallah Shabati, and then followed by your mom, dad, and sister. So the whole Burstyn family was there.
That was my first film in Israel, 1964. And then we went on to establish, I'm so proud, the pioneers of the Israeli film industry.
You're an actor during this very difficult period where you can't be on the stage, where you can't necessarily be involved in a film production, can't be close to each other because of social distancing. And there's word out that things are very difficult for actors, in particular in Israel. One of the things I've noticed about you throughout your life, and personally, just in full disclosure, you've always been very generous with your time. When I worked within the Jewish community, you volunteered to do a number of projects, happily involved. So I guess 2-part question. What's it like to be an actor today? And I hear you're continuing to do those incredible things that only Mike Burstyn does.
It's not just in Israel, it's happening all over the world, not to speak of here in the United States. The tragedy of what's happened, especially to young performers, people, that arrive in New York, for example, and dream of Broadway and finally get a chance, and all of a sudden it's taken away from them. And they can't even supplement their income by being a waiter or a bartender because that's gone as well. It's really tragic. And in Israel, it is hurt our community tremendously, up to the point where artists simply have nothing to eat. I'm talking really, it's gotten that bad. And we have several organizations to support, like the Actors Fund here in the United States. We have Eshkolot that my friend Eli Golitsky established to help Israeli performers. And luckily, they've been helping as much as they can. But I started a YouTube channel that I just decided just to have something to do because I'm not performing right now. And it's called Mike Burstyn and Friends. And you were very kind to be on it. We had a chat. It's just a schmooze, a get-together like we're doing now, since we can't physically get together. And many of my friends from all over the world, celebrities, artists, musicians, diplomats, we just get together and schmooze like we're doing now. And I decided, and that's on YouTube, that's free, but I decided to do the same thing for my Israeli friends in the industry. And we're going to do a Hebrew version of it, but that will be for people to donate if they want to see the chats that I'll have with Israeli celebrities. And the donations will go to support our people in the entertainment industry who are suffering and will be for quite some time to come because everything is shut down. There are no theaters in Israel, no films, no movie theaters. By the way, I want to thank my friend Ben Shvili, who allowed us to use that clip from Kuni Lemel, because he told me, look, it's for you, it's yours, Mike. We have no possibility of people seeing films today in Israel. So that's what I'm trying to do. And thank you, Eric, for being one of my friends on my YouTube channel. And it was so much easier to prepare for this, being an interviewee, than prepare to interview you. So I know what it's like. And really, kol hakavod on your program, because it's something.
I was certainly honored to do it. Mike, maybe you'll just give us a little clip from what you're doing.
Mike Burstyn and his friends.
Let's take a look at a little clip from Mike Burstyn and Friends.
She was commissioned to adapt the story The Adventures of Herschel Ostropol, yeah?
Who was in that?
Wait a minute, I'll tell you. Starring, it says here, Mike Burstyn. Wow. And I am talking about my friend Eleanor Risa, who's joining us from?
A couple of years ago, I bought a little log cabin, and now I'm living in it. Now I'm in a log cabin, a Jew in a log cabin.
I love the wood behind you. It looks like a log cabin.
Yeah, it is a log cabin.
Once an actor, always an actor. Mike Burstyn, what a
Jewish ham. A Jewish ham.
What a delight it has been. Thank you so much for joining us, and much success with all the wonderful things that you do.
Thank you. Carpe diem. Seize the day.
Seize the day. Take care.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.